Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right. So we finished the section. We finished the section within the Abhidhamma pertaining to the the sensual sphere. Today we'll be crossing over to the fine material sphere and the consciousnesses that appear within the fine material sphere. I hope that you have sort of gone through the planes of existence, existence, and that you have a rough idea as to where these consciousnesses arise. To those of you who are new to the class, I asked because there are 31 planes of existence that the Buddha has spoken about, and this would entail the human realm, the woeful realms, the divine realms, right? The divine realms would also, then we would have the fine material world and the immaterial world. So I have sort of asked you to sort of go through so that you have an idea about where these consciousnesses arise, from. Do we have any questions before we do start on the section of the fine material? Do you have any questions pertaining to the previous content that we have studied and gone through? If you do, you can raise your hand and I would unmute your mic. All right, wonderful. Now, with regards to the Rupavachara plane, the Rupavachara or the fine material sphere, the contents of which we are going to discuss today onwards with regards to the fine material sphere, are all consciousnesses that predominantly appear, within the fine material world. This does not mean that these consciousness can only arise within the fine material world. We are very much, it is said that practitioners as well as those within the human realm can access these types of consciousnesses through practice. And the only practice which enables one to access these types of respective consciousnesses is the jhana or the absorption practices. The jhana or the absorption practices. Now, if we would turn to page number 52 of the Comprehensive Manual of Abhidhamma. For those of you who are new, the link to the Comprehensive Manual of Abhidhamma is available on the dhammacenter.uk website under resources, the PDF version. But I would very much encourage you to purchase the book from Amazon. There are second-hand books available as well. And this would really help you to really be on track and to take down your notes with regards to what is being discussed in the class. The recordings of all previous classes are also available online on our YouTube channel. So if you would like to refer back, you are most welcome to refer back to the previous classes, and all the classes are updated onto the YouTube channel. Wonderful. Now, page number 52, the fine material sense consciousness, right? Fine material sense consciousness. Now, there are 15 consciousnesses that arise within the fine material sphere, right? Now, this is not to say that within the fine material sphere, that there are no other consciousnesses that arise. No, no, no. There are other consciousnesses that arise. For example, within the human realm, the plane that we all exist within, humans are born. If we are born without any physical or mental defects, without any physical or mental defects. Now, let me please um, elaborate on what I mean by that. Physical defects by birth. For example, if we are born without certain faculties of body, if we are born with certain I don't know which is the politically correct word to use, but please excuse me if I use offensive word, but mental defects or certain sort of, for example, something like certain syndromes that we are born with, right? As an example. Now, if we are born with such kind of situations or complications, right? Within the Dhamma, it speaks about, within the Dhamma, it speaks, within the Dhamma, within the Dhamma, within the Dhamma, it speaks, we speak about, or we learn about three types of rebirth that could happen with regards to the roots, right? With regards to the roots. Now, Kitsiri is asking about, is it learning disabilities? Now, learning disabilities would, not all learning disabilities would fall under this category. We would have to then go through one by one, right? But it is to say, now for example, let us say something like ADHD. Now ADHD is one of the least diagnosed conditions around the world with regard to learning and all of this. People do still have questions about, is it real or is it not, right? So it is not something like ADHD. This is to say clear cut biological complications that we would be born with, biological complications that we would be born with, which does not allow the mind to operate in a certain way, which does not allow the body to sort of have access to the normal um, abilities that we would usually have as a human. For example, if you are born without limbs, if you are born without certain faculties, such as the eyes, right? This, it is not to say that without limbs you can't achieve enlightenment. This speaks about the karmic energy available to one who is born with certain complications of this sort, right? This is not to say that you need two eyes to attain enlightenment. This is not to say that you need both your ears working to attain enlightenment. No. What this speaks about is the energy that one is able to produce, mentally, in terms of support that one would give mentally, physically, to sort of go through in the path, right? In the modern world, I know there are, for example, there are athletes who do sort of exert so much of energy to sort of achieve sort of excellence in whatever sports that they do, right? I am very much aware of these situations, but this is more to do with karmic energy rather than anything else, right? This is more to do about karmic energy than anything else, according to what is mentioned within the Abhidhamma. According to what is mentioned within the Abhidhamma. So coming down to the Rupa Vachar plane. Now, within the Rupa Vachar plane, if one has gone through the planes of existence, starting from Parisajja Brahma all the way to Akanitta, right? These are the planes. So there are one, two, three. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different um, realms that these consciousnesses can appear within. This does not mean, like I mentioned, now for example, we are born into this world with three roots. If one has all the faculties operational, right? We are born with three roots: greed, hatred, I'm sorry, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. Non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. It is through the arising or these three roots being the foundation of the last consciousness that we have passed away from within our last birth that has allowed us to gain this rebirth where we have our faculties very much active and operational. Faculties very much active and operational, the body and the mind, in the body and the mind. Now it is with regards to rebirths that we gain in terms of having dvihetuka or ekahetuka. Now ekahetuka is being born with one root, very very weak, absolutely weak, most probably the cases that passes away in the womb itself, right? In the womb itself. Very, very weak karmic energy to support even the birthing process, right? Very weak life faculty, right? The Dvihetuka, we find within Dvihetuka, we find complications where children, babies are born with certain disabilities by birth. By birth, we find certain times that babies do not develop fully. Babies do not. This is not to. This does not refer to premature births. No, this does not refer to premature births. This refers specifically to physical, biological defects at birth. If we go deeper into what happens here, is according to the study of Abhidhamma, according to the doctrine with regards to rebirth, when now within the process of fertility, we have the egg and we have the sperm, right? Now, one would say, or within the realm of biology, one would say that the fertilization process starts during the time when the sperm enters the egg and this fertilization process starts. Within the Dhamma, what we find within the suttas, what we find within the Abhidhamma is that although the biological process of fertilization starts, this does not mean that the consciousness appears right at the moment the fertilization process commences. So consciousness does not arise within the embryo or at the moment the sperm enters the egg, but it can appear within weeks into the fertilization, after the fertilization process commences, right? Now, when this happens, there is something called, when we talk about materiality, right? We will go much deeper into these topics when we do, or when we speak about the chapter pertaining to rupa or materiality. So with regards to materiality, there's a type of materiality called kammaja rupa. Kamma is karma, right? Karma. Yeah. I think we all understand the word karma. Yeah. Karma. We will also be discussing about karma in the future. So we have karma, ja, right? Ja means dependent or because of karma. Rupa, the material or the physical phenomena that arises because kammaja, because of karma, right? Because of karma. Now, there are deep points regarding this, right? For example, no, we'll not go into that. That will just confuse you. So with regards to Kammajarupa, when the first Kammajarupa appears, right, this Kammajarupa is supported by the consciousness energy that appears within the self. Within the self. This Kammajarupa appears dependent upon the type of rebirth linking consciousness that we pass away by, right? The type of rebirth linking consciousness, in Pali we call this Pati Sandhi, right? The type of rebirth linking consciousness that we pass away with, right? This determines the Kammajarupa. Now, the Kammajarupa that appears with either 3 roots, 2 roots, or one root, right? Or 1 root. 3 roots, 2 roots, or 1 root, right? That is how we know, or that is how we sort of understand that process of karmic energy, and the first moment where the karma affects the being, right? Karma affects the being, right? Now, if one is born with 3 roots, now I am going into unnecessary detail at this moment, right? But we will be going into greater depth with time to come. But I think this is a good base to sort of know, right? Because the chapter about the jhanas is quite prompt and fast for us to get through. The type of rebirth linking now, as we let us take the example of the 3 roots. Now, the 3 roots, non-greed, this is to do with the letting go aspects that we have, the compassionate aspects that we have, the ability of generosity, love, compassion, empathy, all of that, right? Non-greed, being able to give, let go, those parts of it, right? Then we have non-hatred. This is the caring aspects and the love aspects again, right? Whereas first is more of letting go and sort of being interacting without sort of a sense of attachment. And then at last we have non-delusion, which is to do with more the non-existence of delusion, the existence of knowledge, right? Now, when these 3, now if you can tell yourself, I have been born with 3 roots, right? Then all of those people who are born with 3 roots are able to progressively work towards Nibbana, progressively work towards Nirvana, Nibbana, right? That. But this does not mean even people who are, for example, born of 2 roots, right? Born of 2 roots are able to meditate, right? But it is said that it is very difficult, very, very difficult for them to harness the energy and power to go deeper into the depths of the mind, which would enable them to attain Nibbana. So what is spoken regarding the practice of these 2 root beings is they have to do a lot of good karma in terms of dana, sila, and bhavana. Dana, acts of generosity, through practice as well as through the practice as well as through material giving, where one is able to develop a sense of letting go, right? Sila, develop morality within oneself to strengthen the mind, to strengthen one's practice, and bhavana, to meditate. Meditate to develop one's ability or the one's attraction that one has towards meditation, and to also develop the faculties of wisdom within one's mind. So basically, what one is developing is a connection to non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, right? Non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. With regard to with regard to the jhanas that we experience, Now, when we are born with these three roots, the consciousnesses that are, for example, the consciousnesses such as hate, right? Such as hate, greed, the akusalas, the unwholesome consciousnesses, the 12, are somewhat not our foundation nature, if you understand what I mean, right? Why? Because we are born with three roots, right? We might have an attraction to these natures of unwholesome greed, hatred, and delusion, but they are somewhat not things that brings us to our real being, right? Now, that is a good point to keep in your mind, right? The unwholesome factors, greed, hatred, and delusion, through that we understand, are external distractions that one might entertain in one's mind due to delusion connected, or delusion that we have connected to along our path in samsara, or the cycle of rebirth and death, right? Cycle of rebirth and death. Now, the main faculty within our mind which keeps pulling us towards this sort of this experience, or these negative attributes which keeps us stuck onto samsara, seems to be the habits. The habits so the habits that have been cultivated through so many years and eons, that it has become what we call a latent tendency, anusaya, right? A latent tendency, anusaya, right? When a latent tendency is developed again and again and again and again, there is something much deeper called vasana, right? Vasana. The word vasana, I cannot remember the translation of the word vasana. It is Vasana, if you want to write it down. I do believe there should be a translation within the Pali text, but the word vasana is not very much elucidated upon, right? So what vasana is the habit itself, right? The habit itself, right? The habit that is now you do not have a conscious, it has become such a part of your existence that this habit, you sort of act with it, or act upon this habit without a consciousness sort of supporting it specifically. For example, there are stories where there is a story of a monk, right, who was a cow for many 500 previous births. And this monk, what he used to do is something quite weird and quite ill-natured, actually. What was this? What he used to do is he used to eat his lunch, and as you know, the monks eat their lunch, and that is their last meal of the day. And during the night, he possessed the ability to bring back that meal up to the mouth and keep munching on it like a cow. Right? Right? And he, I'm sorry, I should be laughing, but it is, it is something to imagine. So he was munching this food during he would be able to bring it back. And apparently, I don't know whether the cows actually do this, um, but apparently the cows do this, right? And this monk used to do this as well. And the monks of the time were absolutely appalled, obviously. The monks of the time were absolutely appalled by what this monk was doing. So they complain to the Buddha, right? They complain to the Buddha, and they were like, look at what this monk is doing, right? And the Buddha reference to the monk was, or reply to the rest of the monks was, this monk has been in 500 of his previous births, has been born in such a birth. He explained what the birth was. And it is because of the vasana, or the habit, which has been developed through those 500 births, that he continues to do this now. So he is the only monk in the whole Gautama Buddha Sasana, or the brotherhood of monks within this Buddha, within this Buddha's community, that is allowed to munch on food at night. The only monk who is actually allowed by Buddha's rule to munch on food at night, right? So that's an interesting story. There was also another monk who was a high Brahmin, or high Brahmin. Now, if to those of you who do not know what a Brahmin is a sort of a religious high caste in the times that it still exists in India by constitution. It exists by constitution. Sri Lanka also has high castes and low castes, but it does not, we do not apply it in terms of a constitution, but India has it by means of constitution. And these Brahmins were more religious, right? But obviously with the time, or most of these Brahmins are very sexist, right? Were very sexist as well. Sexist in the way that, you know, women were thought of in a sort of a lowly way, right? So as a monk who was, and also with regards to the previous story that I related regarding the monk who was a cow for 500 birds, he was an enlightened monk, fully enlightened monk. And this monk too was fully enlightened, but he would call out to women as, the word he used was vasali, right? Vasali, which is a female low caste, right? A very, very low caste, right? Just calling the translation, if I am to translate the word vasali into English, the word low caste seems to be too high of a word to use, right? Because the word vasali is such a low, such a degrading word to use, and people were absolutely shocked. Just imagine the people coming into the people coming into the monastery for their meditation and their sort of Dhamma learning, and to see the Buddha, and for all of these activities have been just called or referred to as an outcast. What kind of uproar it would have created, right? Again, there was a complaint, and the Buddha said, this is the reason that this monk is doing this, right? So people excused the monk for his transgression, but that monk also was an enlightened being. So there are certain characteristics that falls. It is said that it is only the Buddha who does not have vasana or habits to that. Now, for example, now if you have a habit of smoking or habit of drinking or habit now, now please don't connect that to vasana, right? Please don't connect that to vasana. Vasana is, you don't even know that it's a habit. It is such a fine phenomena within your consciousness, right? It is not like your habit of having a cup of tea with 2 spoons of sugar in the morning, right? It is not something like that, right? When you say, that is why habit is a very bad translation. But if one of you do actually know the translation, proper translation of the word vasana, please share it with us, right? So, but usually I have not seen the word translator much because it is not used much within the teaching, right? Um, what the example which is used with regards to latent tendency is a pot of toddy right? A pot. So usually toddy would be stored in a clay pot, right? So a pot of toddy, the toddy having been removed or consumed, right? You wash it. So Miri has shared that it is habitual tendency, disposition, or behavioral tendency, right? So I would say habitual tendency or behavioral tendency better suits the understanding of what vasana can be, because disposition can be shallow, it can be deep as well. We just don't know how to apply it. But when you have the word habitual and behavioral tendency, right, it applies more to a deeper sort of vasana sort of nature, right? So we will go with habitual tendency or behavioral tendency. So the example, again, coming back to the example which is used with regards to the latent tendency is the toddy which has been consumed. You wash the pot out now, but yet when you smell the pot, you have this underlying sort of smell. You can't fully get rid of it, right? You can't fully get rid of a smell from a clay pot, right? Especially something as strong as the smell of toddy, which has been fermenting within the pot, right? So that smell, however you try to wash it out, it's there. That smell doesn't keep on disappearing. You sometimes, if you're foolish, you'll put soap into it to sort of cover the smell up. If you're foolish, you never put soap into a clay pot, right? But you to sort of cover it up, but you still have that sort of that smell, right? With the soap smell, you still have that toddy smell, right? That is what the now I am not expert on toddy, all right? This is from the commentary, right? This is from the commentary. So I am no expert on toddy, right? This is from the commentary, and I am relating it to you. So don't get any wise ideas, right? So that is what is related to in terms of the latent tendency, or what we call the anusaya. It is said that it is all arhants, enlightened beings, get rid of anusaya or latent tendencies, but it is only the Buddha who gets rid of habitual tendencies or behavioral tendencies. Why? Because it requires so much practice with regard to the perfections, right? The Buddha spends so much longer within the realms of rebirth, the cycle of rebirth, practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing, that he is able to perfect himself to an extent where he can even get rid of the habitual tendencies. Why? How? It's not a miracle. It's the fact of determination and sort of the determination, the perseverance in terms of within the lines of goodness, right? That is what enables one to that is what enables one to sort of get rid of the vasana. So it takes a lot of time. Let's come back to the jhanas now, right? So page number 52, right? There are 5 jhana factors. What are the 5 jhana factors? Karmic imprint. Um, so Dill says that vasana is also referred to as karmic imprint, right? Which makes a bit of sense. Dill, can you let us know where you found that translation from, please? Karmic imprint is apparently another translation, but let us see where she got that translation. All right. So there are 5 jhana factors. What are the 5? Vitaka, initial application; vichara, sustained application; piti, zest; sukha, happiness; and ekagata, one-pointedness, and ekagata, one-pointedness. Now, these jhana factors are those that are developed through the practice of one or more of the 40 samatha or the tranquility meditation subjects. When one practices in a way where the mind impinges is the absolute correct word to use, impinges upon the meditation subject again and again and again through initial application, sustained application, zest, happiness, and one-pointedness, strengthening these factors that denominate the quality of a jhana or one's ability to experience an absorption. That is when one is able to go into a jhana or access a jhana. The jhana would be a result of, right? The jhana would be a result of one's one-pointedness or one's ability to stabilize the mind based on a material object, right? What is his material objects? The material object would be one of the 40 meditation subjects. What are the 40 meditation subjects? You can always just Google 40 Samatha meditations, SAMATHA, and you will find the whole list on Google. And for detailed reading, I would recommend that you read the Path of Purification, right? Path of Purification, where you have the detailed practice on how to achieve and attain the jhanas. Now, these jhanas, when the mind is focused upon these objects for a prolonged amount of time, the mind is able to collect or devise we call a nimitta, Nimitta, nimitta. In English, we call this a sign. For example, we would take a mandala, which is a sort of a circle, meditation object, such as, for example, let us take a bowl of water, maybe. It is a circle, right? When you focus on this, right? Oh, let me take my water bottle, for example, right? Now, this is, you can never develop a jhana through this because it has too many details in it. That is why we take a mandala. So you focus on this, you focus on this, you focus on this in a specific way. Now, if I am focusing on the water content of this glass, of this bottle, I will only focus on the water. I focus water, 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 water. And in focusing upon this water, what happens is you are able to close your eyes, and at one point, this water will appear in your mind as a meditation object where you now no longer need to stare at a bottle of water or a water pot or a water bucket, right? If for example, you walk in the ancient monasteries in Burma, in Thailand, in Sri Lanka, you find within the stone, if you walk into a stone monastery or a cave monastery, rather, not a stone monastery, cave monastery, in certain parts of the caves, you find sort of holes which have been dug, not holes, but rather circular sort of moles that have been dug into the rock, because monks cannot dig into the soil, they dig into the rock, right? They dig into the rock. Why can't we dig into the soil? Because of the living beings, right? The worms, the whatever sort of might be sort of inhabiting the soil. So we can't sort of poke into the soil or shovel into the soil. What we could sort of poke into is the rock. So you would find these circular looking holes on the rocks. And this is most probably a Kasina Mandala, we call it, right? A Kasina Mandala, where they would fill. Sometimes they would fill it with water. Sometimes they would even fill it with clay of a certain sort, where they would be focusing on this. And it is on this that they develop the jhanas, but it takes a bit of time, a bit of practice, right? And also your previous actions, your previous practices also lay way to how successful you be in sort of achieving the jhanas fast. These jhanas also lay way to you attaining miraculous powers, right? So there are meditation subjects or techniques of meditation where through these jhanas, through the focus oriented subjects, you develop or you are able to develop miraculous abilities, such as, for example, walking on water, such as walking in the air, or we would rather call it flying, being able to read other people's minds, being able to see the future, being able to see the past, right? These are different abilities that one would be able to develop while sort of practicing these techniques of meditation. But it is not necessarily now fun sometimes when you have a deep ability or you have the ability to tap into deep levels of samadhi, awakening certain parts of the mind. One can hear the thoughts of people around you. The power of intuition, the modern world would call it the power of intuition. I, having sort of read through and sort of being with highly developed monks, could say this is far beyond the power of intuition, but the intuition does have very much does belong within this. For example, the power of intuition is very much used. A person who meditates would realize that when one has a sixth sense regarding certain things, for example, the gentleman who started Mind Valley, I think for any one of you who goes through sort of holistic based videos on YouTube, you there would always be a Mind Valley promotion coming up, right? Mind Valley at the moment is a business valued at $100 million. He started it from his broke down apartment in New York City, and he speaks about how he sort of used or came into meditation or learned about meditation. He was working at Google before that, and how he stumbled upon meditation, and how through his meditation he realized that his in power of intuition started growing. So this was during the period. Now this is just some facts, I think, which is good to know, because this relates a lot to, because not all of us might be going towards jhana, but these things are very much things that you could then use for your practical personal lives, right? So what this guy, his name is, it'll come to me. Um, um, so so what he used to do is, now he used to he he quit his Google job. He started going into meditation, but now he had to have a job. He was married as well. He had to sort of have an income. So he started working for a tech company again. And it was during the time of the recession. So they were not getting paid a salary, rather they were getting paid for all the tech packages that they were able to sell to the lawyers, right? So this was a specific package or a software that he had to sell to, yes, Vishen Lakani. Thank you, Dil. So Vishen had to sell this package to the lawyers. And he had no idea at first. So he had to take out the directory. the directory and then go through the lawyer section, and he had to call each and every person. He was failing miserably. Then, of course, then he was going into this. So as he was failing miserably, he stumbled upon meditation. And then through his meditation, he sort of realized, he had an intuition. He was going through the pages and he said, okay, call this guy, right? And his power of intuition, he learned to focus it in a way that he was able to say, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And he would sell to each and every person that he now focused on through his power of intuition, right? Now, that very much is something that people experience during meditation. You just know. Your sixth sense is just so sensitive. Your sixth sense is just so sensitive that you are able to really know what a person is approaching you for, right? In a way, in terms of a partner, or a person who is going to be your partner, or person who's trying to become your friend, or a work colleague, or whatever it is, people that we associate. You have a pretty good sixth sense about these people. That is also reason why it is very difficult to grow close to a monk who is a proper practitioner. Why? Because they just have a sixth sense about you. They don't easily, if they sense anything sort of coming toxic from your side, they will not connect with you, right? They will not connect with you. And that goes for a lot of spiritual practitioners. A lot of spiritual practitioners, they have a sixth sense about you, right? And those types of abilities are developed when these sort of jhana factors, or the factors that we've gone through in terms of initial application, sustainable application, zest, happiness, and ekagata, when these factors are developed. These factors are also a part of the mental factors, a part of the 52 mental factors that we are going to study about. These are very much mental factors, right? These are very much mental factors. Now, just for information, now let us take joy, right? Let us take joy. Now, out of the 82 or 100, out of the 121 types of consciousnesses, right? Out of the 82 types of consciousnesses, 81 types of consciousnesses, 51 types of consciousnesses has zest in it, right? Which is a jhana factor, right? Which is a jhana factor, right? But now zest also appears within, remember, the zest appears within, zest can appear within even the wrong types of unwholesome, or rather unwholesome consciousness. Initial application appears within 55 types of consciousnesses, and initial application also appears within unwholesome consciousnesses. Unwholesome consciousnesses. Initial application is something which allows us to stick on to something, or hold on to an object, So, does the question that I'm going to put to you to think on your own is, okay, so the more akusala that I would do, or the more akusala objects that I would cognize, does that increase my chances of actually getting down to an absorption when it comes to that time of practice, right? What do you think? Initial application vitakka appears within the unwholesome consciousnesses as well. If one is practicing towards jhana, would the unwholesome consciousnesses or the vitakka developed, or initial application developed the within the unwholesome consciousnesses support one's journey in attaining jhana? What do you think? Right? What do you think? Same goes now sustained. Now, sustained application appears within 66 types of consciousnesses, including each and every unwholesome consciousness. Each and every unwholesome consciousness. Please raise your hand if you have something to add, or if you want to share your thoughts and opinions regarding my question. Right? For example, also things like desire, chanda, wish, right, appears within unwholesome and wholesome consciousnesses. And desire and wish is something which appears within all of the beautiful consciousnesses, including those consciousnesses that help in the attainment of Nibbana, right? So would these mental factors then, right, be supportive of the attainment of Nibbana, even if it appears within the unwholesome, right? Forget about the unwholesome, forget about what action it is unwholesome by nature, right? But this is one singular mental factor, right? What do you think? Yes, Chamari.
Bhante, I think with an unwholesome Chaitasika or unwholesome conscious, what are they called?
There is nothing as an unwholesome Chaitasika. There are unwholesome Chaitasikas, which is the universal unwholesome consciousness, which is 4, right? Which we will come to. That is delusion, shamelessness, that. But we have not talked like wish, zest, initial application, sustained application are not unwholesome consciousness. Chaitasika.
Okay. So I think I wanted to say unwholesome consciousnesses.
Okay.
So I can't imagine them allowing someone who is practicing to have piti and sukha with unwholesome consciousnesses. So my understanding at the moment is, therefore, with an unwholesome consciousness, you can't really attain a jhana.
Okay. But why?
By nature, it is unwholesome. So would it
but the thing
create...
is, okay. Now we are not talking about the unwholesome consciousness, right? We are talking about the unwholesome mental factor. I'm sorry, the mental factor, not the unwholesome mental factor. The mental factor which supported in the action which was unwholesome. Now, for example, let's say now I'm looking at a Buddha statue, right?
Yes.
I am looking at the Buddha statue with my eyes, right? Then I'm looking at, let's say I'm looking at WWE wrestling, right? I'm looking at that also with my eyes.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Now, in that way, right? Now, this is a mental factor, right? This is a mental factor that we're talking about.
Yeah. So that's as far as I can go with this at the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chamari. Thank you for pitching it. Huh? Who else? Come on. Dil? Dil, you have been unmuted.
But I'm not taking up the challenge because my mind is not that clear and I don't want to ramble.
Oh, okay. No idea also, Dil? What?
I'm not clear about the question even, Bhante. So my
You're
mind...
not clear about the question also. How many of you are not clear about the question? Can you raise your hands up? Okay. The question is, right? The question is, now Vitaka, initial application, sustained application, happiness, zest, happiness, and one-pointedness are mental factors. right? These mental factors appear within or arise in the processors within the processors to support both unwholesome and wholesome consciousnesses, right? Wholesome and unwholesome consciousness. Just as, for example, I use my eyes to look at the Buddha and to arouse some sort of faith, and I'm looking at WWE to arise some sort of anger, right? Of course, Miri, some sort of anger, right? So, now we are not talking about the consciousness, we are talking about the mental factor, right? Because the jhanas are mental factors, right? These jhana factors are mental factors, which when are developed to a certain state or certain stage, we are able to achieve or go into a jhana, right? Achieve or go into a jhana. For example, I want to build my muscles, right? One can build muscle by going to the gym, lifting weights, and doing all of that also. And one can build muscle by hitting people also. A weird way, but a weird example. But one can punch people and get used to that, doesn't go to the gym, but punches people, fight with people, and sort of develops muscle as well through that, right? So now, at the end of the day, the muscle has been developed. Is it the same way with regards to the attainment of Nibbana? Or, I'm sorry, attainment of the jhana, absorption, right? Would the impingement upon the acts of unwholesome allow one to also achieve or support in the process of developing, for example, sustained application to a level where one is able to achieve or go into a jhana? Yes, Miri. You are unmuted. Oh, sorry. Miri?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Miri can.
Oh, sorry. I thought with the occasional chaitasikas like the Preeti and the Chanda, I thought they can only if they affect the beautiful consciousnesses that you can achieve jhana. I thought like Chamari that actually it is if you have the occasional or the prakirnaka affecting the kusala consciousnesses that you can achieve jhana and not the akusalas. Because they are the occasional ones, aren't they? They are not, they don't
Very
have to
true, Miri. Completely agree. I am asking you why.
Well, because unlike the Sabbhachitta Sadharanas, the Prakirnaka only are affected in some of the consciousnesses, not in all.
Okay.
Yes, it can affect it in the some of the akusala ones, but that certainly wouldn't be a path to jhanas, would it?
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, Bhante, I don't know.
Again, going a little bit more deeper. Now, okay, Samantha, okay, Miri, is that all?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Samantha, do you want to say something? Veera, I'm going to come to you also. Okay. Samantha does not want to say anything, I think. No? Okay. Veera, what do you think, Veera?
I think these you called occasionals are common to both wholesome and unwholesome. And always you have to have some more chaitiskas to make it a complete wholesome or unwholesome thoughts. So do you understand me? Because it's actually common chaitasikas, but with some other chaitasikas, it make it different from two categories actually.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Samantha, what do you want to say?
So from I'm not sure whether I understood the question, but from my understanding, to get into jhanas, you have suppressed your, I don't know whether I'm the right way, the hindrances. Everyone's got the hindrances. They're temporarily suppressed. So one could have the root of not greed, whatever, hatred, and all this stuff initially, but it's later on through focusing on the object, you can temporarily suppress the hindrances and then get into jhanas.
Okay. So
something like that.
So this is in understanding now. Now, okay, we'll listen to what Anoma has to say as well. Anoma? Anoma? Anoma, you wanted to share something with us?
No, sorry, Bhante. I just couldn't sorry, Bhante. I just couldn't follow. I couldn't understand the question clearly. So I was just thinking, it was too much for me. Sorry about it. I'm trying to get it.
I am very sorry. Maybe I have just gone into a sort of a base. Okay, what I will do is this. Okay, forget about the question. I will answer it. Right. So now with regards to the jhana factors, now these jhana factors arise in both the wholesome and the unwholesome, right? When these jhana factors arises, the jhana factors, now for example, let us take the event of me looking at the Buddha and me looking at WWE. For those of you who do not know what WWE is, it's wrestling, right? Now, when I'm through the same eyes, I'm looking at both of these. There is initial application and sustained application within this act of looking, right? But the level of the Chaitasika or the mental factor with regards to the cognition of these different elements, these different sites, is not similar. It appears with different other subjects, phenomena, support, right? Because of that is why, for example, when you would go to a party, you would behave in a very different manner to how you would behave when you are in a religious place of worship, right? Because the consciousness, the Chaitasika that arises at a completely different level, right? With regards to the consciousness that arises. Because the akusala, because the unwholesome, in enacting or working with an unwholesome subject, the Chaitasika or the mental factor is unable to focus oneself in a way that would be expected when one is working towards a jhana. When one is working towards jhana. In suttas, we call this Mitra Samadhi, right? Mitra Samadhi. Now, Samadhi is concentration. Mitra Samadhi is wrong concentration. For example, studying, right? Studying or your ability to read a book is seen as Mitra Samadhi with regards to the attainment of Nibbana. Not to say that reading a book is bad, but reading the concentration that one develops whilst reading a book, whilst reading a book is known as Mitra Samadhi because it does not, the focus that you develop around that does not support the one's ability to access into the deeper insights which would be expected of one in the process of attaining Nibbana. Then it would come, for example, let's take the same thing, reading a book. What if this is a book regarding the wisdom or development of wisdom with regards to understanding of the three characteristics? Then it could be something, or it could be a samadhi that would very much be within the spectrum of support necessary for the attainment of jhana. What is then expected here? What can we understand from this? It is to say that samadhi, in terms of your journey in attaining nibbana requires wisdom, and that wisdom needs to be developed through the samadhi that we practice. So with regards to vipassana, insight meditation, the samadhi or the concentration that we practice is something through experience we understand three things: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. These three characteristics directly influence one's understanding or one's ability to progress upon the path. Yes, Dil. You can unmute your mics now. Yes, Dil. Okay, I will unmute it. Yes, it's unmuted now.
Right. I remember when we were in London, one day you were telling us that there was somebody who was meditating, and he was just about to enter a jhana, and then some passerby wanted some directions, I don't know, to some convenience or something. And you told us, Bhante, then that because he was just about to get into jhana, he didn't help. And he said, if you don't, because that's really not non-self, not leading to non-self, that's very selfish, right? That he would never have was able to get into jhana in that moment, or even later on in that life for quite some time.
I think, I remember the two stories that I mentioned. I think there's a slight mix within you sort of mixed. Okay. One story with regards to the monk walking in a direction is a story mentioned within the commentary, right? It is mentioned, it's actually, yes, it is mentioned within the commentary, and it is also found in the path of purification. The other story that I related, where a monk was about to enter jhana, and he was disturbed by a monk who walked in and disturbed him because of the because he was just about to cross, and he was disturbed, right? And this sort of this surprise or this disturbance brought a lot of anger to this monk. So this monk was unable to achieve or go back to that state where he was about to enter the jhana for a very long time, right? I'm not so sure whether he has even achieved it now, because that hate, sort of that frustration stuck on, right? So with regards to the story that Dil is mentioning is, yes, Dil, you did, yes, I did mention the story. So what about it?
No, so I was thinking that in other words, that on the way to jhana, unless it's something that is coming from wisdom, which is like seeing the tree, supportive of the tree, understanding the three characteristics like anicca, dukkha, anatta. If those kind of things come, then it will be propelling it towards, supporting you towards your progress. But if any other things like this anger or any of these other things come, then it takes you away. So those kind of unwholesome things can't support you and propel you.
Absolutely. Now, with regards to the jhanas, you don't need to focus upon the three characteristics. The jhana only needs a samadhi, right? The jhana only needs a samadhi, and also when one is practicing towards the jhanas, thinking about the three characteristics, contemplating the three characteristics can actually be a disturbance to the achievement of jhana, because contemplation within the path of jhana is something which arouses more and more vitakka, or initial application, right? Initial application. Now, let us go into Samantha. I'm going to unmute yourself, Samantha. Nihal, you have a question for us?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Bhante, you know, the now this attainment of jhana, it's like, if you're focusing on your object, on the breath, so is it like an automatic process of like dependent origination? Because of this will happen, and it'll just automatically, provided that you will, you know, your concentration is there, it'll just happen on its own.
True and false. True with regards to when, now let's talk about the automatic process. There is something within, when one develops, or when one wants to develop an absorption, when one is determined in mind, the energies of meditation that one develops in mind is progressively supportive towards the attainment of jhana, right? So if one has true sort of effort, right, true effort and need and desire to achieve jhana, and if one is making the effort towards it, the mental energies that one is creating live would enable one or help one in the achievement of jhana, right? Also, with regards to the same fact, when one, now why are there, now we will come to this in greater detail, but why are there 81 or 121 types of consciousnesses? Because of the absorptions which arise with the attainment of the saint paths, right? So when you attain Sotapannahood, there is the ability that one could achieve it through the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana, and the fifth jhana, right? Right. That is why there are 81 or 121 types of consciousness. Now, there is also within the commentaries, there is a discussion, a forum which goes on, where it is said, although the person has not developed samatha even a day in his life, because of the samadhi that one has developed within oneself, because of the samadhi that one has developed within oneself, during the practice of vipassana, one is able to achieve jhana just because of that. Usually, then this would be the first jhana, right? Usually, it would be the first jhana. Even if one has never practiced a samatha object in one's life, it appears through the vipassana samadhi, or the insight concentration, right? So that is that part, Samantha, right? So the other part where it is not true is with regards to is where it's regards to the samatha, because now samatha, the focus oriented subjects, what are we hanging on to in terms of motivation, right? The motivation to keep on going with regards to samatha is comparatively less when you compare with insight. At least in insight meditation, you have the need to want to sort of achieve nibbana, or to understand, wanting to understand the reality of conditioned phenomena and all of these other mentalities that we know of quite well, right? So the motivation that one has, or what sort of pulls one towards the jhana, is somewhat weaker in terms of connecting one to the path of practice leading to the jhana, right? So because of that, there can also be a position where one finds sort of difficult or not attracted to the jhana. Do you understand, right?
So you've got to have a goal as such.
Yes. So in jhana, it is very important to sort of, what sometimes people do, they use vipassana as a chewing gum for jhana. if you understand what I mean. Now, for example, when I do the relaxation induction meditation for you guys, right? The first 30 minutes of our Saturday and Sunday, that is a chewing gum for all of you, right? That is not the deepest parts of Vipassana. That is the technique where I employ techniques of Vipassana as well as hypnotherapy to induce a calming effect upon your minds, which will give you the attraction to go deeper into wanting that peace, right? So the second session, you work harder, right? So the second session, you work harder. Now, in Vipassana, even for example, when monks from Sri Lanka, the Naoin and all these places go to, for example, when they go to Paok meditation, and because Paok goes from the Samatha subjects, all the Samatha subjects, and then they go into Vipassana. It's not like Mahasi or Dhamma Jiva Bhante's technique, where it is all Vipassana from day one, right? Now, so what monks in Sri Lanka would then sort of advise the monks who are going to this monastery park to practice the 40 meditation subjects and then lead into Vipassana is try a bit of Vipassana to keep you motivated, right? Try a bit of Vipassana, do a bit of Vipassana to keep you motivated. So in that way, I would say, Samantha, the attraction that we have day by day to keep on going is less compared to what we experience with Vipassana. But when one achieves or comes close to that piece of the jhana, there is also the danger of getting trapped in it, right? Trapped in it in how many people instill. Now, for example, I am able to hypnotize you so well that you will absolutely have nothing in your mind, right? I don't do it, right? Because there is nothing that will come out of it, right? But I have also learned that monks unknowingly do hypnotize people, right? Do hypnotize people, right? With regards, now there are different ways of now, of course, then there is this whole discussion about Bhante, what is hypnotherapy, what is hypnotism, and all of these things. That's a different topic altogether. Why do I use it? Because I find that in using, again, if I may interject with a point of information, hypnotherapists would not know where exactly hypnotherapy started from, but hypnotherapy has deep roots in Buddhism, right? Hypnotherapy has very, very deep roots in Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, right? Tibetan Buddhism. And the techniques, for example, this technique that I use, or rather that I have actually made up as a mixture of Vedananupassana and hypnotherapy, is a technique which is also the base technique for out-of-body experiences as well as lucid dreaming, which is now currently taught a lot, right? So the teaching of out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming, we do not have in Theravada Buddhism, but it is very much a practice of Tibetan Buddhism, right? Tibetan Buddhism, not Mahayana as a whole spectrum, but Tibetan specifically, right? So these sort of chewing gums or things which gives you a taste of what meditation can offer helps us to push us forward. And some monks, or with the use of, it is all about the use of language. It is all about the use of language, right? How we prompt, how we are able to use specific words, and we know the effect that this word would give you in your mind when you're closing your eyes. Can I make you so now, because I use the word here, hypnotism, can I make you do things that you don't want to? No, that is only in the movies. Right? That's only in the movies. So when yeah, Samantha.
Sorry, I was going to say, so my confusion is, like, when the Anapana Sati Sutta, that takes you from stage 1 all the way to the 16th step.
Yeah.
And that goes through all the jhanas, and also it goes through all the satipatthana, the tetras, all the vedana, pasana, chitta, and all the stuff, all the way to the goal.
Yeah.
So that's everything all in one, as it were.
Yes, everything all in one, but a very difficult technique for a busy-minded person. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that's little. Yeah,
Right, that's the only thing. Right, but then when you come to, for example, now when you get used to Vedanapasana, you can move to Anapanasati more effectively than ever. Right, more effectively than ever. Now, Samantha,
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Buddhika, Nihal.
Hi, sorry, I may be doing things backwards, from my questions really, but I am trying to grasp about the jhanas. To my sort of grasping, reading the compendium, is it correct? There are 5 stages of jhana, or first to fifth, and there are 5 components as well, which is initial application, sustained application, zest, happiness, and one-pointedness. Is that thinking correct? That's my first question. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, then is it correct to sort of grasp that you move through jhanas? In the first jhana, you have all these components, and when you move on to the second, you drop the first, but you don't got to go through the first stage, and you have on the second to fifth, and as on, when you move up the stages, you drop those stages one by one to where finally we only have one-pointedness. Is that correct? Is that a state one?
It doesn't happen organically. It has to be pursued. There is a technique to drop it as well. It has to be pursued. It will not happen in a way, for example, like a stream enterer would organically achieve a once returner, non-returner. It doesn't happen in that way, right? That is why there is a danger within sort of practicing the jhana, because one could easily feel as if one has achieved enlightenment and get stuck within the jhanas. And also, with regards to the sign that arises in a jhana, you can play with this sign, right? This sign could be a very concise ball almost. Actually, mostly it's a concise ball. And this sometimes people play with this ball for throughout, and they experience or they live in the bliss of this one-pointedness created between this ball, this sign, and yourself for a amount of time, which can be a big waste of time, right? So that is the danger which exists there, right? So have I answered your question, Nihal? Yes.
I'm sorry. I think I lost the voice at some stage, so I didn't actually hear part of it. Perhaps we progress. I probably asked you again.
Yes, we will be going through. We'll be going through this. We'll be going
Yeah.
through this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, Gaini.
Bhante, quick one from me. When you do mindfulness with us, you mentioned that it's sort of like helping us, just similar to hypnotizing, or it's not exactly this.
Yeah. Okay.
But
okay,
but my question is in Buddhism. Is it mainly focusing the meditation? Is it mainly focusing on beautiful consciousnesses? So it's sobhana chaitasikas to improve the mindfulness, basically. Is that right? If I say that, just my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong.
That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. It is a sobhana chaitasika that a beautiful consciousness that allows us to experience meditation initially up until we develop into the jhana. So it will always be a sobhana consciousness, or beautiful consciousness.
Okay.
Right. So with regards to, for example, practices. Now, let me just, before anyone sort of misunderstands my technique, when we, as we are people who've lived, gone through difficulties in our lives, gone through both good and bad experiences in our life, right? Something that we find difficult to, for example, let's say with techniques such as anapanasati, something that we specifically find very difficult to let go of is is um, is, for example, forgiveness. Experiences such as, to forgive. When you're doing metta, you to sort of stop yourself from sort of remembering hateful incidents, or things like that, right? And when we are able to go into emotions, mental states where we are able to experience peace, solitude, tranquility coming from the letting go of the mind, then the mind gets a sense, gets an idea that, oh, this feels better than the hate. Letting go of hate would feel even better, right? And that is why we use relaxation induction techniques to sort of relax yourself, to allow even the hindrances to temporarily be suppressed in a way that would allow for a good base for you to do or practice your Vedana Pasana or insight meditation afterwards, right? If we had now most of the people attending the when Saturday and Sunday class, I've seen that people have developed quite fast with regards to the practice that they've been doing, and it would be quite different if we did not have that relaxation in the beginning, right? It would be quite different if we didn't have the relaxation in the beginning, because that relaxation is the buffer, if I may use that word, the buffer between all of the baggage that you've accumulated over your past and your future in meditation. It is the buffer, right?
Yeah.
And that buffer enables one to sort of say to oneself, oh, peace is better,
Yeah.
peace is better. So that is what we try to achieve. So all of these consciousnesses would be sobana.
Right.
Yeah, all of these
Thank you, Bhante.
consciousnesses would be sobana at different levels, of course.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bhante.
All right, Gaini. All right. So today, do we have any more questions that you would like to have answered? If you do, you can use your hands up option. Or else, if we do not, I think we can wrap up the session, and we'll be anyways continuing again day after tomorrow. So wonderful. I think we are fine. Yes. So we don't have any questions. We'll continue with the rest of the lesson day after tomorrow. I'll see you all tomorrow. Or the people who do attend the Sutta class tomorrow. And I would like to remind that all of these sessions are recorded online and are available on our YouTube channel. Of course, also anyone who would like to make any charitable donations towards the Dhamma Center is able to do so by visiting the dhammacenter.uk website, and any donations are welcome towards the upkeep and the maintenance of the center. Thank you very much. Have an amazing rest of the day. And yes, Samantha, the talk is happening on Sunday and the email will be sent out tonight, right? Take care and good night.